Stewart. I'm out here with my Brittany today, and we're going to cover some public property. It's a very small piece of property, and it's the first time I've ever been on this particular property, so I want to see what we have here, possibly for the upcoming bow hunting season. So this particular property is very similar to a lot of the properties, or say public properties, that I hunt in my area, as you can tell over my shoulder here. All right, we have a pretty good cow path going on. So there's definitely a lot of people that are going to be coming back here. The key is going to be able to find some little nook and cranny spot that a lot of people aren't going to, and see if we can't find that one obsolete area to set up and possibly get a buck this year off of it. And it might be even that we go all around this particular woods, if you want to call it that, and it may not even have what we're looking for, but that's what we're out here today, and let's see what we can find. Here's the difference between hunting, let's say, a private parcel and a public parcel. For instance, if you look behind me over here, you can kind of tell that we have a lot of thick red brush. It's just real thick in there, and you can get a little nasty with some thorns and stuff. Now, there's a trail right here that comes out of this particular area here, and it comes right down, and it comes actually out into this open area behind me. All right, so if I was hunting this as a private parcel, I think I would be fine hunting up into this thick stuff and waiting for them to come out, let's say maybe in the evening, out into the open stuff that's out in front of me here. But in a public property that I'm on right now, what can happen is that these deer know that there's hunters that have been coming through here. So really the odds of a nice buck, a shooter buck, coming out into this particular open area here, okay, during shooting hours is probably going to be next to nil. So once again, this is the difference between public and private. Private, yeah, I could probably hunt back up in here and get a buck that's a little less weary of coming out into the open area. Public, no, it's not going to happen. So let's just keep walking, and let's see if we can't find something that looks good. I'm expecting probably one tree stand out of this whole 100 acres, if that. But if it's the right spot, the right deer, it'll be all worth it in the end. So let's keep going. All right, so this particular spot, actually, I really like. Now, in a setting, if it was private property, this would be just outstanding. But once again, we're dealing with public land hunters. They're going to see exactly what I see as well. So, they're going to track to the back end of this property, and they're going to see, this field edge, and then behind me gets really super thick. Okay, so these bucks can come across not across, but along the edge of that field edge. Follow that along. There's actually a pretty good trail that leads open to the private field over here, depending upon what they're going to have planted this upcoming fall. And then it gets really thick back in here. So people like edges because deer like edges. I don't blame them. But when it comes to public properties like this, these can be also magnets for hunters, and it doesn't take long, and other hunters can stink up, pressure this area, and the deer know it, the bucks know it. So let's just keep walking and see what else we can find. All right, so here's a really good spot. I'm away from that field edge. That field edge is about 150 yards that direction, and we have a nice little knob or a knoll that actually goes down into this bottom down here. And then over on that side is all private. It's all fairly thick, it looks like, from this particular spot. So this particular spot I really like. Once again, it's one of those spots. Do other people see the same? And actually does have a creek that does go in the bottom down there as well. So I marked this spot on Onyx, and it's just one of those spots I'm going to do a little bit more reviewing when I get back. But I think there's one more spot that's just going to be a little bit better, just due to a feature on the private property over the 140 over. So. All right, everybody. So here is that spot I was kind of telling you about. Now, if you looked around me, you'll notice that there's nothing real exciting about this particular spot, okay? It's a little thick. The spot actually I'm in right now is fairly open. So, but if you look behind me, you can kind of see it's a little bit thicker back there. I'm right on the edge of essentially the public and the private. The private is probably about 40 yards over that way. And I'm not a fan of actually sitting on people's lines. I think ethically it's really not correct. You know, I can see 70, 80 yards off the line. But to sit actually right on the line, I don't think is correct. So anyways, the reason I like this particular spot though, is that can't tell looking that direction, but approximately 120 yards due that way is an oak island, or at least it looks to be an oak island. I can definitely see it from the road, just barely when I drove past it onto the private. And my guess is that if there's any good deer in here, they're going to bed on that oak island surrounded by this swampy water behind me. And this is about the closest spot to that particular island, even though that's on private and I'm on public. So what I'm going to do next now is I'm going to keep scouting just a little bit more, and I'm going to find the landowner next door. I know he has no trespassing signs on that particular property. My guess is he's not going to let me hunt that particular property, but if I can hunt here, and if I ended up getting a buck that would go on his property, just looking for that permission to possibly go after that buck if I did get one over here. So that might make or break my decision to of whether or not I hunt on this edge, because I really need to be about as close as I can be, and that's even 120 yards to that oak island. And if he gives me that permission to get a deer if it goes on his property, that might give me the actual green light to put at least one sit in here this fall. So let's keep scouting. All right, so here is some nice rubs that I found right along this red brush, which I expected. The way these are actually facing, they're actually going to the direction of that stand. But once again, we're kind of out in the open behind me a little bit. So with that being said, I wouldn't expect this to be a very good spot as far as during shooting hours. Just with this open area behind me, my guess is that these rubs were made at night, but it's a good sign. Looks like decent rubs. I wouldn't say anything amazing, but good enough that gives me a little bit of hope that there's, you know, some decent bucks that do travel through here. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Once again, it's just basically a breakdown of a very small public piece of property and how I go about looking for what I look for. Now, this particular property, once again, it's not something that's going to be like a dynamite property. These particular properties, I look at them as like an early season, like opening day, especially if it's like nasty with bugs and mosquitoes, especially in the swampy red brush area, because what it does is it gets people who aren't, you know, looking forward to sitting in heat and mosquitoes and bugs to give you that opportunity, that crack at maybe that big buck that might be in the particular area. But once bow hunting season, you know, opens and a couple of weeks in, and if we have people coming in and out of here, you know, that's going to push those bucks onto those private properties. And then the next best way of possibly getting you know, a good buck off of a property like this is to then set up during the rut, right on, you know, on the edge of the public property, and see if we just can't get a big boy that, you know, accidentally sneak in to the private one day, assuming that everything is right, temperature and wind and cold and all that good stuff. So that's how I'm breaking down this particular piece of property. Like I said, maybe 2 sits, an opening day sit. If I come back here and I put a camera and I see something that looks really, really good, or maybe a rut sit. But yeah, that's how we're going to break this property down.